the bridge between worlds. Have you ever felt like a ghost in the machine? Like you're the only person in the room who remembers how to read a paper map, but also the first one to figure out why the Wi-Fi is acting up? If you were born between 1976 and 1985, you occupy a strange, shimmering sliver of history. You're not quite a Gen Xer. You didn't have that grunge-infused, cynical apathy of the 70s kids. But you're definitely not a millennial. You weren't born with a smartphone in your hand or an Instagram filter on your childhood memories. Sociologists call you a micro-generation. Some call you the Oregon Trail generation. But mostly, you're known as Xennials. You are the last humans to remember what the world looked like before the internet changed the very fabric of our brains. You are the analog childhood, digital adult cohort. And as it turns out, living on that bridge has created a psychological profile that is entirely unique and perhaps more resilient than any generation that came before or after. Today, we're diving into the psychology of the Xennial. Why do you feel so different? Why are you the Goldilocks of the modern era? And why does your specific upbringing make you the ultimate emotional Swiss Army knife in a world that's increasingly polarized? Close your eyes for a second. Think back to the sound of your childhood. It wasn't the ping of a notification. It was the mechanical thunk of a VHS tape being swallowed by the player. It was the rhythmic screeching symphony of a 56K dial-up modem trying to connect to a world you couldn't quite see yet. If you're an Xennial, your childhood was tactile. It was analog. You lived in a world of landlines and long cords. You remember the specific anxiety of calling a crush's house and having to talk to their dad first. That was your first lesson in social negotiation, a skill many today avoid with a ghost or a text. You had a low-resolution upbringing. Your photos were developed at a drugstore days after they were taken. You didn't know if you looked good until the physical proof was in your hand. There was no delete button for a bad hair day. This created a psychological buffer, a wait-and-see patience that is nearly extinct today. You played outside until the streetlights came on. Not because of some trad wife Pinterest aesthetic, but because that was the law of the land. You were reachable by no one. You lived in a state of true, unmonitored privacy. But then, just as you were hitting your late teens or early 20s, the most formative years for identity, the world shifted. You got your first Nokia brick phone. You saw the birth of Google. You moved from landlines to Napster to MySpace. You didn't grow up with technology. You grew up alongside it. You saw the transition happen in real time, which gave you a superpower. You know how to live without it, but you know how to thrive with it. Why does this matter psychologically? It comes down to neuroplasticity and cognitive flexibility. According to research often cited in the Journal of Adult Development, the transition from analog to digital during late adolescence creates a unique cognitive duality. Because your brain's prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning and personality, was still hardening during the tech boom, Xennials developed a high level of media literacy without the digital dependency seen in younger cohorts. Sociologists often point to the locus of control theory. Xennials tend to have a more balanced locus. Your analog childhood taught you an internal locus, the idea that you have to solve problems yourself, like fixing a bike chain or finding a friend's house without GPS. However, your digital adulthood gave you an external toolset to amplify that power. There's also the concept of context collapse. Millennials and Gen Z often struggle with the fact that their entire lives are documented online, from middle school mistakes to professional LinkedIn profiles. Xennials, however, have the shadow years. Your most embarrassing moments happened in the 90s and early 2000s, safely tucked away in shoeboxes under the bed, not on a cloud server. This creates a psychological sense of identity safety. Because you weren't performing for an audience during your puberty, you often have a more grounded, stable sense of self. You don't need the likes to know who you are, because you already figured that out in the quiet of a bedroom decorated with posters from a physical magazine. Furthermore, a study in computers in human behavior suggests that those who learned delayed gratification, waiting for a TV show to air at a specific time before instant gratification, have higher rates of emotional regulation. You, the Xennial, are the masters of the wait. How does this play out in your life right now? It makes you the workplace translator. In the office, you're the one who can explain to a Gen X boss why the vibe of a Slack channel matters, while simultaneously explaining to a Gen Z intern why they actually need to pick up the phone and call the client. You possess bilingual social intelligence. You speak both rotary and TikTok. In relationships, Xennials often show a unique blend of cynicism and optimism. You have the Gen X skepticism, you know when something is a scam, but you also have the millennial drive for purpose and connection. You're less likely to be fooled by the digital facade of a perfect life because you remember the messy reality that preceded it. However, there is a hidden cost, the sandwich burden. Because you are the bridge, you often feel responsible for everyone. You're looking after aging boomer parents who struggle with iPads while raising iPad kids who don't understand why you can't just Google a physical object. You are the emotional glue holding the generational gap together. And that can lead to a specific type of Xennial burnout, the feeling of being the only adult in the room who understands both the old rules and the new ones. Ultimately, being an Xennial is a bit like being a time traveler. You are the last generation that will ever know what it feels like to be truly lost in a city and have to ask a stranger for directions. You are the last ones who know the specific, tactile joy of a mixtape, where every song was a deliberate choice, an act of labor and love. There is a quiet beauty in your position. You are the keepers of the old ways, but you're not stuck in them. You are the proof that humanity can adapt to the lightning-fast speed of the 21st century without losing its soul. If this resonated with you, if you remember the smell of a new cassette tape or the struggle of Encarta 95, let us know in the comments. Which analog skill are you most proud of keeping alive? We're building a community here for the curious, the nostalgic, and the psychologically minded. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Xennial brain, hit that subscribe button and join us. We've got a lot more to explore. Until next time, stay grounded, stay connected, and maybe, just for tonight, put the phone in the other room. You remember how to do that, don't you?